Sorry, I'm from the Yay area. We got to do it big. You guys got to come in with some music. Okay. I can't help it. I am fired up to be here. First of all, I want to ask a question. When you think about self-defense, what are some things that come to mind? Just show of hands, just call it out.
Whoop somebody's butt.
Yep. Whoop somebody's butt. Anything else that comes to mind? Attack. How do we attack?
Striking, punching, finding vulnerability, spot of vulnerability.
Yeah, anything else that comes to mind when you think of self-defense, if you've ever taken a self-defense class or anything like that?
Saying no.
Saying no, right? Yes.
Building your confidence.
Building your confidence. Yes, I love these answers. And I'm sorry?
Protecting yourself?
Yes, I love these things. Those are traditionally, when we think about self-defense, we think about pepper spray, putting keys in between our fists. We say, no, 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 no. Poke somebody in the eyes, kick someone in the groin. Yeah! All of those things. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's not enough. And I say that because since the start of the pandemic, the way that people interact with each other has evolved. So the way that we have to protect ourselves and stand in our power has to change. How do I know this? I know this because back in 2017, I was teaching traditional self-defense classes. And what was happening is we were doing all that stuff. It was like, hey, I want to feel strong and I want to like do the technique. I want to do the punches and all of that stuff. It looks really, really cool. But what I started noticing was that the problem was there was a few women in the class who just were mentally constipated and they just couldn't get the technique. And the classes were usually filled with a male-dominated presence who probably wrote a book or whatever and just really wanted to be the alpha in the situation. So what they would do is they would yell at the women to just do it, just do it. And just everyone in the class was putting so much pressure on them. So I did something a little bit different. I took a step back and I really tried to figure out how to create a safe space for them. I would ask them the question, what's the story of how you got here? What's going on right now? And all of these things, this outpouring of stuff just started happening, which was way beyond the physical. It was shame, it was guilt, it was the generational curses, getting my sage here. All of that intergenerational trauma, it was the negative self-talk. It was like, I hear my mother's voice. I was in this relationship with this narcissist. And all of these things connected with how someone had the ability to defend themselves or not. So I developed a system that focused on mind, body, and voice. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, standing in your power. Leverage over strength. So what was happening is these women would be lying on the floor, and there would be a man that comes by, 200 pounds plus, mounted on top of them, choking them. Once I helped these women make a self-defense mindset, which is really instilled in you are not alone, you are worth fighting for because you are enough, to really root yourself in love and courage, to think about who you fight for and who you're trying to get home to, that helped them tap into so much, along with voice. What are the words that I'm saying to myself? And how am I managing distance between me and the potential threat? So once those things became in alignment, these women had a visceral warrior response, which was like a bat out of hell. They did the technique so much more quicker and so much more efficient. And that's where my company, Reclaiming Your Courage, was really birthed, because I saw that you really had to co-create a safe space for women built on identity, consent, and co-creation. This is not like old school of like, hey, just do this. And how did I know that? I knew that because I was someone who has struggled with my mindset, I've lost my voice, and I felt powerless. When I was 8 years old, at the bus stop with my yellow Sony Walkman, Sarah and Becky come up to me when I'm eating my pound of Sour Powers, and they just grab my Walkman and they throw it on the ground, crush it. The other girl spits in front of my face. And she's like, "You are so fat and ugly. No one is ever gonna love you." I bit my tongue. Culturally, I've been programmed my whole life to not make waves, to not bring shame and guilt to my family. So I just held it in, and I went home to my mom. And she knew something was wrong because I was crying in my pillow. And so when she talked to me, she's like, "What's wrong?" And I was, I just couldn't talk. And so my mom taught me what self-advocacy was, because she said, "You're gonna learn how to knock the shit out of them." So she signed me up for Taekwondo camp. 6 months later, after Taekwondo camp, saw Sarah and Becky again, kicked them in the gut, and that was that. That was the first time I reclaimed my power. A couple of years later, my mom decided to send me on a trip to Korea by myself because she wanted me to be more in tune with my culture. Right? Now that you're learning Taekwondo and, I just want you to be more Korean. What she didn't know is that when I went on that trip, that I would later be sexually assaulted by a family friend who knew I didn't speak the language. So that was another time in which I lost my voice. And when I came back from that trip, I didn't tell my mom because I didn't want to undergo trauma Olympics. I didn't want her to be like, "Well, I was raped and, I carried you throughout the war." So I didn't say anything. And there is a bigger price to pay by not speaking up than there is speaking up. And I didn't learn that until later on. Flash forward to 10 years after that, when somebody held me at gunpoint, wrapped their hand around my throat, and pressed me up against a cold cement wall here on Market Street. I remember thinking to myself, like, I just never thought that this would happen to me. So your nervous system just shuts down, fight, flight, or whatever. If you don't have a mindset around protecting yourself, then all of that means nothing. But again, I said nothing to advocate for myself. Flash forward to my fancy job right around the corner here at a 4-star hotel. I am an assistant to a director of sales and marketing. Anyone see The Devil Wears Prada? Oof, I was calling this The Devil Wears Hermes. Because my boss was an Asian woman who sold me on mentorship and elevating another Asian sister. So I ate it up. Little did I know that she kept commanding me like a dog. And one day when I didn't do something the way that she wanted it to be done, she sat me down at a table just like this. She pulled out a piece of paper and her favorite red pen, and she drew a bell curve. And she said, "Some people, Leslie, are up here. You must be down here. Wow. So I guess you're just stupid." I just ate shit and I didn't say a word. And that was my first lesson in what suppression really does. Because what started happening is the panic attacks, the trips to the emergency room, my immune system shut down. I had a doctor say to me, "You have an ulcer." And I was like, "Oh, okay, but can I go back to work?" Because that was how I was programmed, to just be excellent at everything and work really hard. For goodness sake, I have 2 black belts. Like, that wasn't enough for my mom. I had to get 2. I had to try out for the Taekwondo Olympic team to just prove that I was pretty good at it. So once the doctor sat me down, they're like, "No, I don't think you get it. If you don't actually learn how to manage your emotions in a healthy way and to process and speak up, like, you'll actually bleed out." Like, it was that bad, and I didn't realize it. I had to really ground myself in what is my purpose. And before I could really overcome my struggles, I had to hit rock bottom. And rock bottom wasn't actually the conversation with the doctor. Rock bottom was, I was making money at that time at that hotel. I come from a money scarcity mindset. My family's poor. I'm financially supporting my mom and my older brother. And I just remember all the pain that my mom had gone through because my brother was so bad. He was in gangs. He later became addicted to painkillers. And I just didn't want to be a bad daughter. And so every conversation we ever had was tied into money and gold. It's an Asian thing. Get me gold. Show that my sacrifice for you was worth something. And I was so stressed out at that hotel job, and I was getting sicker and sicker. And I remember calling the HR representative and actually having her do the math of, well, how much money would my family get if I die? That, like, I don't see any worth in myself, that I would rather have my mom and my brother be okay. And that's where I started my journey into really healing. So my North Star, my values in my business and my personal life is love, courage, and community. My mission is to save the lives of women and allies globally. This picture was taken right around the time where I launched my business. And it happened in 2021. And is anyone familiar with the Atlanta spa shootings? I was still working at my job, and I couldn't work, and I called my boss crying. She's a white woman general counsel. And she's like, "What's wrong?" And I said, I can't get it together. I can't hold it together. I can't work today." "Oh, why?" I said, "Because of the Atlanta spa shootings, where the shooter went into 3 massage parlors and killed 8 women, 6 of which were Asian." Oh, those spa shootings. And she said, "Well, you know, Leslie, sometimes with the pandemic, things get like pretty amplified." And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean by that?" And she's like, "Well, sometimes the way that we would react to something, it probably like you wouldn't react that way if it wasn't the pandemic." And I said, "Helen, I'm pretty fucking sure that if it weren't the pandemic and I saw women, all of which looked like my mother and my aunties, the fact that I gotta sit at the dinner table with my kids and my husband and talk about what would happen if one of us got shot. That's the conversation I'm having at myself and my family." "Okay, well, you could take the rest of the day off, but like, I need you to apologize why did you use like poor language? And I was like, I'm not apologizing for shit. And that was part of the rude awakening. And that awakening happened because of the rise of Asian hate crimes. So the minute I was like, I didn't get fired, thankfully. But the next day, I went and took this photo and I wore this shirt. And I started wearing that shirt everywhere. Because when people started coming up to me and saying all the time, me so horny, me love you long time, I understood how identity impacts the way that potential attackers perceive you. So let's break it down a little bit. My identity as a Korean and Chinese American woman intersects with the way an attacker sees me on the street. Weak, docile, hypersexualized, dragon lady. I can't be too soft and quiet and silent and invisible, but I can't be like too assertive because that's aggressive. Forever foreigner. She's got hella cash. So I'ma just jack her right now, right? So these are the things that go into the psychology of an attack. Standing in your power simply means your ability to take up space and manage the space around you. I had to consciously work on burning that sage, those generational curses. Because my mom was like, please, don't say anything. Don't rock the boat. Don't do anything. And I'm like, I surrendered to myself and the control in all of this. And I give myself permission to take up space. So when I told off my boss, I didn't care what the consequences were. It was about me representing myself and representing my voice. Reclaiming your voice is drawing a line in the sand and saying, I'm not going to be fucked with today. Three things you got to know about standing in your power. Feed your self-defense mindset. Your self-defense mindset is everything. Again, you are not alone. You are worth fighting for because you are enough. That is the framework that goes into navigating in and out of daily situations. And this is way beyond the physical. What are some situations that make you feel vulnerable to a type of physical or non-physical attack? What are some things that are on your mind all the time? Anyone?
Traveling as a single woman.
Traveling as a single woman, yeah. Anything else?
Being pinned to the wall.
Being pinned to a wall.
Being black.
Being black, thank you. Being a woman.
Being judged for speaking your truth.
Being judged for speaking your truth, thank you. Any other situations that
being judged for the clothes we wear, like it's like men commenting, but then it's other women also sometimes commenting on what a woman is wearing, which is,
Thank you, that's so powerful, right? It's either you dressing too hoey or you're dressing too stiff. Yeah, it's everything. How else do attacks show up in our life in a non-physical way? Verbal. Emotional. Mental.
Has trauma in our own thoughts.
Trauma in our own thoughts, thank you. And that is something that you have to consciously choose to start healing yourself. Your healing journey is not linear. I wanted to break the patterns of the generational curses because when I became a mom to 2 kids, I was like, I will not repeat those patterns that my mom did. She did advocate for me, but I tell people, you cannot bend me. Like, you can bend me, but you can't break me because I was raised by a Korean mom. Be excellent at everything you do. Be number 1, Leslie. You have to. You have to. Because you represent us. And don't bring shame and guilt. And if you speak up the way that you're doing, like, it's gonna, my mom is so dramatic, Korean dramatic. She's like, I'm gonna have a heart attack. You're speaking up so much. You're in a book. You're gonna go, you're leaving the kids here today? Like, why? You're gonna go speak? You talk too much. without her actually knowing I'm doing this for her. Because what Asian hate was like, Mom, like, I never grew up having to worry about you going to the store, to the grocery store. But she was attacked when my son was 1 year old for being Asian. Second, take ownership of your voice. You cannot just wake up one day and start speaking up. You actually have to craft your voice. And one of the things I teach to my clients is think about your boundary statement. You know the types of attacks that you feel most vulnerable to, whether it's a shitty boss who you're trying to advocate for a raise, or you want to raise yourself up in leadership. It could be you're an entrepreneur and you have to put up some boundaries to someone who's like manipulating your time and trying to suck it all out. So my advice to you is to work on your boundary statement. A boundary statement is a very clear and concise statement that you can make towards your attacker, whether that is physical and whether that is non-physical. And it has to be very clear and concise. And do not do what everyone does, is over-explain your boundaries. Your boundaries are not meant to be explained. Oh, well, you see, the reason why, like, I want this boundary, or I want you to understand why this boundary is so important to me. No. Don't word vomit to people. You need to be very clear and concise. I need you to step back. Take 2 steps back. I need some space right now. Or if it's a loving friend, like, I just don't have the mental and emotional bandwidth right now. Can we reschedule a time where I can, like, listen to you in a heartfelt way? But you have to protect your peace so that you can pour onto yourself, but also defend the ones that you love. Last, create body awareness. This is not about being the strongest person in the room. My clients come to me all the time. They're like, I don't feel strong. I'm actually just, I've been attacked before. I think I'm just waiting for the next attack. So I want to show you really briefly what leverage over strength really is. So I'm gonna have Clara come up. I literally only like showed her for 5 minutes what this was and how to do this. So I'm gonna have you stand over here. So part of your self-defense mindset is understanding the psychology of an attack. So here are the phases of the attack, and this is something that you want to write down. Identify an unsuspecting target. That's usually someone on their cell phone or who's not very situationally aware. Second, isolate and subdue. 3, exhaust. 4, carry out the assault. So I'm gonna actually have Clara. No, I give a fair warning. Body awareness is simply understanding what do I do? So I actually want you to pull me and grab me by the wrist, because isolate and subdue. Most of my clients have been abducted and taken into a car. So here's what I want to teach you today. I want you to understand how to actually leverage your body so that you don't get taken. Step number 1, drop it like it's hot. Use your hips, drive it into the earth. Because if she tries to pull me, pull me, pull me, pull me. I'm not going anywhere, okay? So all I'm doing right here is my feet are like, they're wide, right? Like 24 inches wide. Feet are going forward, and then I'm just dropping it like it's hot. My booty is planted into the ground, okay? Next, I'm gonna just turn my toes towards her, and I'm just gonna bend my front knee, because if she tries to push me, where should I be distributing my weight? Forward. Go ahead, push me. Yeah. Yes. Right. So just understanding these things, how to leverage yourself, okay? So I taught Clara how to actually do a wrist release. So really briefly, I wanna just show you how quickly this can be done. I'm pretty strong, I have a good grip. So let's just do the first one where you turn your hand, palm towards the ground, and then release yourself. Okay? All she did was look for the opening between the thumb and the index finger. She turned her palm towards the ground, and instead of pulling, she just twisted her hips towards the window. Bam. Now I want her to release herself from a wrist release. I want her to bend her front leg towards me as if she's lunging towards me, and I want her to connect her elbow to my elbow. Easy. Thank you. Next, I'm gonna have Carissa come over, and Clara's gonna help Sorry, I put them on the spot. I only really gave them 5 minutes in the hallway in the hotel yesterday. So I'm gonna have Carissa lie on the ground in one of the most vulnerable positions we can think of. Claire's gonna go on top, and she's gonna wrist pin her. In a second, Carissa is going to drive her heels into the ground, and she's gonna whip her hands and her wrists towards her hips, and she's gonna thrust her hips into the ceiling. And whenever she's ready, you can just hit it and go. Boom. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's how quickly that can happen. Yes. You don't have to be the strongest person in the room. So that's what I teach my clients. Raise your frequency so that your allies can find you. This is about energetically reclaiming your power, reclaiming your voice, everything that I talked about today. You don't need a savior. You just need an ally. Lastly, be a trailblazer. A trailblazer is someone who forges their own path, pours gasoline over it, and lights it on fire.
Yes.
Then what you do is you reach out your arm and you say to another woman, sis, I found another way, let me show you. I'm not your savior. I am going to fight alongside you. This is how we strengthen and heal communities, is that I'm going to fight beside everyone because we're gonna make it to the helicopter and we're making it home. Yes.
Usually they attack people who are vulnerable, like somebody in a wheelchair or walking with a cane.
Yes, yes. And the elderly and women. Yes, yes. And we are seeing this every day in our communities. And so I do personal and community safety workshops. I do workshops around vocalizing boundaries. I teach senior citizens how to leverage their canes, ones that can't necessarily stand, how to maneuver their body. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm happy that you're here. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave you with that. I want you to be the trailblazer, and just know that your love is infinite. And that is what I wholeheartedly wanted to offer you today. So part of being a trailblazer is lifting other women up. Today I want to talk to you, as I'm wrapping things up, about the Women Warrior Uprising community, which is a community I have built on Facebook. It is rooted in love and courage. And just like we know what we do, I'm gonna hold a beat for you to hit up this barcode. I want to invite you into a community that's intentional, where we're gonna be talking about what we talked about today, the vulnerabilities. Well, what do I do if someone did this? What if I do if someone were to grab me by behind? Like, I want us to have a community of women that really support each other with this mindset work and the voice and the body. So we really just scratched the surface today, but I just want to say thank you. I am so grateful for everyone for being here and for listening to me.